So future teachers, the topic is principles in assessing learning. So before I will discuss the principles, I would like to give you a background on OBE because our inclination is already inclined on the OBE or the outcomes-based education. Now class, when we talk about the OBE curriculum, one of the key characteristics of your OBE curriculum is to start with a clear picture of what is important for the students to be able to do. Okay, so this is the step one in your OBE curriculum when you are designing the curriculum. Then you organize the curriculum, instruction, and assessment to make sure that this learning ultimately happens. So what is the message for this, for us teachers, no? If you will be teaching subjects, for example, in high school, if you will be handling subjects, for example, like science and health, diba? So for example, if you have your science and health 7, science and health 8, whatever subject is that, before guys you decide if what will be the things that will be done in your class, ask yourselves first, what are the outcomes that the student must be able to do? What is your goal after the end of the class? Okay, or after the end of the entire subject? Gone are the days na wherein, for example, you will be looking at the topics first. Diba? Kadalasan yung ginagawa, tinitingnan mo na yung topics, tapos from the topics, gumagawa ng assessment, gumagawa ng exam. Plus, if you are dealing with the OBE curriculum, you first think of the outcomes, no? If you would look at even the word OBE, outcomes-based education, in other words, titingnan muna yung outcomes. Halimbawa, gusto ko that the end of the session, the students will be able to understand the different types of rocks. Okay? If that is the goal, that they will be able to understand the different types of rocks, my activities class will be based on this goal of having them understand the different types of rocks. Okay? So again, in the OBE curriculum, you start with a clear picture of what is important for the students to do. Then the second step is for you to organize your curriculum, instruction, and assessment. It's not the other way around. Okay? Then, what are the 4 basic principles of OBE? There are 4 basic principles of your OBE. That's clarity of focus, design down, high expectations, and then you have your expanded opportunities. I would like you to memorize and familiarize these 4 principles of OBE. So again, you have clarity of focus, you have designing down, you have high expectations, and then you have expanded opportunities, your CDHE. Allow me to walk you through the 4 principles. 1 plus is clarity of focus. When I say clarity of focus, it is focused on what we want students to know, understand, and be able to do. Class, this focus that we are referring to is actually your outcomes. Our focus, class, is actually your outcomes. Okay? Then we should focus on helping students to develop knowledge, skills, and personalities. Ibig sabihin, class, we are still going back to your K, S, and A. Okay, we would want students to develop knowledge, skills, and attitude. Or, if you would look at it in other terms, we need to develop your cognitive, you also need to develop your psychomotor, and then you also need to develop the affective aspect of the individual, because this will enable them to achieve the intended outcomes that have been clearly articulated. So class, pag sinabi kong clarity of focus, hindi ko po pwedeng sabihin that at the end of the term or at the end of the grading period, my student will become intelligent. Hindi pwedeng ganon. Hindi ko din pwedeng sabihin that at the end of the first grading period, my students will become intelligent in mathematics. What do you mean? What do you mean by intelligent? What do you mean by intelligent? So dapat plus yung outcomes mo is clear. They should be able to perform simple addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Okay, that should be very specific because again, that's what one goal of your OBE is. Dapat clear kung ano yung focus natin. Next, you have what we refer to as your design down. In your design down class, paulit-ulit din naman to. Class, ang sinasabi ng design down is that we start the curriculum by the intended outcomes. We start the curriculum design with the intended outcomes that the students are to achieve Okay, to be achieved at the end of the program. To be achieved at the end of the program. That's how we start. That's how we start our preparation as teachers. Then after that class, all instructional decision would be coming from here. So all class, your instructional decision would be coming from here. In other words, how will you teach your student? That would depend on the outcomes. How will you assess your student? That would depend on the outcomes. Okay? Because remember, right, when we are teaching, we are always looking into curriculum design, and then we also have your delivery, and then you also have your assessment. These are the three major things that we focus on. So sir, saan magbe-base ang design? Sa outcomes. Saan magbe-base ang delivery? Sa outcomes. Saan magbe-base ang assessment? Lahat sila class babalik sa outcomes. That's the main message of designing down. Now, high expectations. Kadalasan, di ba, yung narinig nyo nung especially nung pandemic, which we have been through, the usual thing that we can hear is that people would say that no man left behind, or sinasabi nila no student left behind. Now, there are people who would construe this as, okay, automatic pass naman pala lahat ng mga estudyante. Is that true or false? Automatic pass ba yung lahat nating students class in the OBE or even during the pandemic? Anybody? Yes? Is that an automatic pass ba for us? When I say that no student would be left behind, yes, I would want to see your responses. Automatic pass ba yan? Pag sinabi kong no student left behind. So no. It's not an automatic pass. It's not an automatic promotion on the part of our students. That's not the principle that we are applying. So class, what do we imply here is that we facilitate learning. Supposedly, ang ibig sabihin po niyan sana is that nagfa-facilitate po tayo ng learning. Now, going back to the high expectations, the point that I was about to make is that if you are a teacher, guys, no, since we will all be teachers, class, you should establish, a teacher should be able to establish high challenging standards. High challenging standards. Ano pong ibig sabihin natin dyan? Hindi po pwedeng sabihin ko na, uy, let's make my exam easy so that my students would pass. No, that's not how it works. No? That's not how it works. Okay? Our purpose, class, is to make it high challenging standards. Paano, sir, kapag bobo yung students ko? Paano daw kapag bobo yung students ko? Okay? So, pag sinabi mo namang bobo yung students mo, class, that very time, that very thing na sinabi mo, mali na po yung idea mo. Because as a teacher, you should not think of your students as bobo. Okay? By the time, class, that you said that your students are bobo, you're already not applying the principles of teaching and the principles of education. Okay? So class, dapat tayong teachers, we are thinking of our students as intelligent. We are thinking of our students as highly capable individuals. Kaya yan po yung dapat isipin natin. They are intelligent and that they are highly capable individuals. Now, what is the purpose why we are doing the high expectations for our students? Plus, the purpose of high expectations is to encourage students. The purpose of that is to encourage students to engage in class, to engage in what they're learning, okay, to engage in learning. Isipin nyo na lang ganito. Pag lahat ng topic na pinag-uusapan natin, alam nyo, will you be listening to my discussion? Di ba the tendency is, hindi. Kasi alam ko naman ang topic yan eh. Kung alam mo naman or expert ka naman sa isang topic, di ba the tendency is that you will be leaning your focus on other things that you do not learn. So that's why, class, we do your high expectations so that our students will be able to engage themselves. And they will have the feel na kapag pupunta sila ng school, they have something new to learn at school. Okay? That is what the feel that we should be giving our students. Now, it's also based on the dictum that successful learning promotes more successful learning. It's also based on the dictum that successful learning promotes more successful learning. In other words, if the students feel na, wait, I have something to learn, they would also feel, I want to learn more. Pero, pag sa first part pa lang ng lesson mo sasabihin, uy, nakakainis si ma'am, hindi ko magets yung topic. Class next lessons, hindi niya magigets yung topic mo. Tuloy-tuloy na yung hindi niya magigets. Okay? So, dapat we'll be able to make the learning successful. Then, the next point here is expanded opportunities. Pag sinabi po nating expanded opportunities, as a teacher, we strive to provide expanded opportunities for our students. In other words, no, yung palaging sinasabi that learning is not only in the four walls of the classroom, which is correct. And tayo bilang teacher, we should be able to facilitate that so that our students' class would have what we refer to as expanded opportunities. So how do we do that? So because class, not all learners can learn the same thing in the same way at the same time. So for example, pag daldal ng daldal ako dito, if I'm just talking here, if I'm not asking questions, I do not know if you're learning. If I will just be talking here, there are people who will be bored because they are not auditory learners. If I will not be asking you to make assessments, I will not be able to trigger your critical thinking skills. So those are the reason why, again, we are having various types of assessments. We are having various types of assessments. And then we are also having various activities for our students. Okay? Now, kadalasan, di ba kung nakikita ninyo, yung mga requirements na pinapagawa natin, especially in the elementary, secondary education, you can tell your students na create a Valentine's card and give it to your mother. Right there and then, class, you are teaching them values. Right there and then, you are also enhancing their drawing skills. Okay? So yun yung mga assessment na pwede nating gawin among our students. Hindi po, kung titingnan nyo, yung paggawa ng Valentine's card is actually telling them that you can do something in school that can be given to your parents. It does not mean that school is separate from the household where the child is growing. Okay, that's one of the principles here. And then plus, most students can achieve high standards if they are given appropriate opportunities. So pag sinasabi niyong, uy, bobo, hindi nakikinig, class, it could be that that student is just not an auditory learner. Try niyong bigyan ng notes. Pag bigyan niyo ng notes, tapos she is able to cope up, class, with the requirements that are available or with the assessment and the examinations, ibig sabihin, class, the student is learning. Okay? Now, if you can notice, no, in elementary, secondary education, lalo na kapag sa public school tayo, isang example is mapapansin nyo, yung mga students, meron talagang student na gustong maghiram ng libro. Okay, there are students class who would want to borrow books because they would want to self-study. That's why as teachers, we do not discourage them. No? Do not tell them na, uy, hindi pwedeng humiram ng libro. Bakit ka na naman hihiram ng libro? Unfair ka, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Do not discourage them. They are actually borrowing the books, class. Why are they borrowing the books? Because they would want to self-study. And we actually encourage that as a teacher because class, we do not make them rely on us. We do not make them depend on us, but we would want them to become self-directed learners. They should be self-directed learners. In other words, they should be learning on their own. Okay, they should be learning on their own without the need for us class to push or to force it. Okay? Now, with that introduction on your OBE, again, let's recap. What are the four basic principles in OBE? Okay, type it down. What are the four basic principles in OBE? Okay, what's the acronym that I have given you for the principles? What's the acronym that I have given you for the principles? Sige na. Okay, so you have your CDHE. Ano yung C? Okay, let's start. What's C? Sige na. What's C? Very good. You're talking about your clarity of focus. What's D? Design down or designing down. Very good. How about your letter H? What's your letter H? Your H is high expectations. Good. Okay, and what is your E? What is your E? Your E is Expanded opportunities. Okay, expanded opportunities. Now, please memorize this. Please internalize this principle. Whatever the curriculum is, by the time that you will be teaching, that will still be applicable. Okay, when you are dealing with your students. Okay, remember, class, the tendency is that we do not abruptly change the curriculum. We just develop and improve the curriculum. So, kung na-notice nyo dati-rati, competency-based yung mga curriculum. Tapos nag-transition tayo papunta ng outcomes-based. So whatever that curriculum is, class, no, if makikita ninyo, ini-improve lang po natin yung laman ng curriculum at ini-improve lang po natin yung direction ng curriculum. Hindi naman po natin change lahat sa curriculum. Okay? So my message is that this might change, this might be improved during the time that you will be teaching, but still they may be applicable. Now, let's have the first principle of your assessment. One, assessment should have a clear purpose. Okay? Sir, paulit-ulit kayo sa purpose. Yes, plus the purpose is the basis for methods in collecting information. And in your OBE, this is your clarity of focus and design down. Kung tayo namang teachers, halimbawa, gagawa ka ng assessment. So, class, gagawa ka ng assessment. Okay? For example, gagawa ka ng quiz or hindi kaya gagawa ka ng activity. Whenever you will be making your quiz or activity, ask yourselves, what's my purpose for this quiz and what's my purpose for this activity? Pag sinabi mo sa sarili mo na, sige, bibigay ako ng activity para mag-a-absent ako today, my students will have something to do. Sampalin mo yung sarili mo bilang teacher, ha? Maling mentality yan. For example, you're making an essay and then you're thinking na gagawa ako ng essay para yung students ko tatagalan sa pagsagot. Mali po yung sinasabi ninyo sa sarili ninyo bilang teacher. Okay? So tanungin yung sarili nyo, what's the purpose? Why do I need to have this assessment? And that purpose should be clear. That purpose, again, should be clear. Next, take note that assessment is not an end in itself. Ibig sabihin, class, when we talk about assessment, dear future nurses, is just a step. Assessment, class, is only a part of the process. So hindi ko po pwedeng sabihin na tapos na ang assessment, tapos na yung quiz, wala na akong ibang gagawin. Class, pagkatapos ng isang quiz, what's the best way for you to do as a teacher? After class the quiz, what's the best way for you to do as a teacher? Ano pong dapat gagawin ko after ng quiz? Sige nga. Ideas?
Providing feedback, sir.
Okay, very good. You should give feedback to your students. You should give feedback to your students. And what is that feedback? Plus, that feedback is in the form of scores. So don't make your students wait. Ilan kaya yung score ko sa quiz? Okay? Or don't make your students hanging na check kaya ni ma'am yung quiz namin or hindi. Baka pinapapasa lang yun tapos hindi naman chine-check. Diba? Tapos baka perfect naman kaming lahat doon. So class, you give feedback on the scores and you give feedback also on their performance para malaman nila kung saang area sila mag-i-improve. Now, it is not also a simple recording of what learners know and do not know. It should lead to decision that will allow improvement of the learners. So, pagkatapos nating mag-feedback halimbawa, no? Tapos nakita ko, yung average score ng students ko, for example, 5 lang out of 10. Ibig sabihin, they poorly understand the topic because it's only half the scores. Okay? Now, anong gagawin mo? You identify class the weak points. You identify the weak points of your students. And once that you will be able to identify the weak points of your students, you can again have option. Pwede kang mag-remedial classes. Okay? Pwede kang mag-remedial classes, may that be inside or outside of your classroom hours. Okay? That's one thing that we need to remember. Or you can reinforce the topic. Before ka mag-proceed sa next topic, guys, i-reinforce mo muna yung topic kung saan sila weak. Okay? So that they will not have difficulty in dealing with it. And then class, take note, assessment is an ongoing, continuous, and formative process. Pag sinabi natin class ongoing, Hindi siya pwede na sa katapusan lang ng klase. Hindi siya pwede na sa simula lang ng klase. Dapat tuloy-tuloy po siya. Now, pag sinabi ko namang tuloy-tuloy, it does not mean that every day, quiz 1, next day, quiz 2, next day, quiz 3. Take note, babalik naman siya sa principle na dapat different types of assessment. Now, it should be consist of series of tasks, okay, and activities conducted over time. So pag sinabi nating series of tasks and activities conducted over time, plus example, no, pag nagtuturo ka ng research, if you will be given the opportunity to teach research, for example, in senior high, isa po sa ginagawa natin sa research is, nagbibigay po tayo ng activities. Halimbawa, activity 1, mag-identify sila ng problem. Sa activity 2 class, magsi-search sila ng related literatures. Sa activity 3 class, gagawa sila ng objectives of the study. Sa activity 4, gagawa na naman sila ng hypothesis of the study. Sa objective number 5 or activity number 5, mag-framework na sila ng study. Now, plus pag titingnan ko itong activities na to, it's geared towards development of a research proposal. Okay, it's geared towards the development of your research proposal. Because you would want the activity to be a series of tasks. So hindi pa pwede na sabihin ko at the end of this semester, you should be able to submit a research proposal. Paano? Paano gagawin ng students yon? Dapat guide mo sila step by step or part by part so that it will not be a big lump of work for their end. And then class, it is not a one-shot activity and it should be cumulative. At saka yung important element dito class is again, paulit-ulit, feedback, and that in OBE, we are giving them expanded opportunities. Another good example perhaps is, for example, science. In science, you can ask your students, no, okay, by tomorrow, please identify acids and bases in your household. Okay, identify acids and bases in your household. So anong gagawin nila? Hahanap sila, uy, muriatic acid is an acid. Uy, vinegar pala is also an acid. They will be able to apply that in their household, that there are different types of acids and bases that are actually used in the household. So that is also congruent to your principle of expanded opportunity. Okay? I will be discussing na the succeeding principles in the next discussion. Any questions in mind?